Starting in July, China will implement the National Unity Law, a new censorship law. Even foreigners may be punished for criticizing China, including upon entry. Today, let's examine this more closely. Before we begin, if you want to get the fastest international news in the country, please make sure to hit the subscribe button. I would really appreciate it. China passed the National Unity Law on March 12. After the National Unity Law passed, countries worldwide voiced serious concerns about China's legislation. Let's take a closer look at what this National Unity Law is. According to Article 15 of the National Unity Law, schools and educational institutions are required to use the national standard language and script, that is, Mandarin based on Beijing pronunciation and simplified Chinese characters, as the basic language of instruction. It also stipulates that learning Mandarin should be promoted at the preschool level, and that proficiency in Mandarin should be the goal at the compulsory education stage. Previously, ethnic minorities still had some institutional space to preserve their languages and cultures. This new law has greatly reduced that space. The Chinese government explains this as strengthening the sense of community among the Chinese people. However, human rights organizations and academics abroad are calling it the legalization of assimilation policies. Also, this law does not only apply to the field of education, it will have a wide-ranging impact on the internet and media sectors as well. The bill includes a provision that requires internet platforms and service providers to immediately delete or block the spread of any information that harms national unity. They must also keep related records and report them to authorities. Now, critical views on minority or religious issues will likely be controlled even faster in China's online space. The bill's provision urging the state to promote exchanges and integration among ethnic groups is also attracting attention. The Chinese government says authorities will boost human exchanges and economic ties between minority areas and other regions. However, critics point out that such policies could, in the long run, weaken the cultural independence of minorities and result in their assimilation into a Han-centered society. In fact, China has already, in Xinjiang and Tibet, has consistently promoted standard Chinese language use and encouraged Han migration in areas like Inner Mongolia. Control over religious affairs is also being tightened. The law stipulates that all religious organizations, religious schools, and religious facilities must follow and adhere to the direction of the Sinicization of religion. This means religious activities must align with Chinese Communist Party policies and national ideology. This is why there are assessments that government intervention in all aspects of religious education, religious events, and the operation of religious facilities is likely to increase further in the future. Many experts are concerned that government control now extends beyond schools and religious facilities to private homes. With the inclusion of a clause stating that parents or guardians must not instill ideas in their children that are unfavorable to ethnic unity, the authority to determine what content is problematic has effectively been concentrated in the hands of the state. Academics interpret these regulations as an attempt to reorganize education, culture, religion, and family life in line with national policies. The Chinese government says these measures promote national integration and stability, but critics warn they could further limit ethnic minorities' language, culture, and religious identity. But many people consider Article 63 to be the most dangerous provision of this bill. The previously mentioned language and religious policies are very controversial, but the international community is especially focused on this provision because it also applies to people outside China. Article 63 of the Ethnic Unity Law says that organizations or individuals outside China who harms ethnic unity or promotes ethnic division against China can be held legally responsible. This means non-Chinese nationals could face punishment if the government deems their actions divisive. This is precisely what concerns the international community most. Previously, criticism of China's minority policies was tolerated if made abroad. However, some worry the situation may change after the Ethnic Unity Law is implemented. For example, if a Korean YouTuber covers the issue of Uyghur human rights, a journalist writes an article about Tibet, or a politician makes remarks criticizing China's ethnic policies, it is unclear how the Chinese authorities will interpret these actions. This is because the legal provisions are broadly written, describing actions like destroying ethnic unity or engaging in acts of ethnic division, but their scope is too wide. Of course, it's hard to believe that China will immediately enforce the law against people all over the world. However, the international community is concerned this could impact entry to China, visa screening, business permits, investments, and academic exchanges. Business people, researchers, and journalists with regular contact with China can no longer rule out the risk that their past statements or actions may become problematic. Therefore, foreign experts are also quite critical of this new law. China explains that this is a measure for national unity, but outsiders are paying attention to the fact that China's legal influence could extend beyond its borders. For this reason, the Ethnic Unity Law is causing considerable controversy, not only over China's internal minority policies, but also in its relations with the international community. In particular, this law is also in line with China's recent efforts over the past few years to expand its extraterritorial jurisdiction. This suggests that statements from overseas individuals or organizations may now be controlled, even on topics once seen as China's internal affairs. In fact, China has increasingly raised issues with actions taken overseas regarding matters related to national security, national unification, and territorial integrity. The new national unity law is also seen as moving in the same direction. This is also why Taiwan is strongly opposing it. The Taiwanese government sees this law as a possible new legal basis for future cross-strait relations. The national unity law requires Chinese citizens to protect national unity and ethnic cohesion. Taiwan worries this may not be merely symbolic. Seon Yu-jung, deputy chairperson of Taiwan's Mainland Affairs Council, warned that the law might serve as a legal basis for cross-strait matters. While it appears aimed at domestic stability, it could actually expand jurisdiction. There was also a more noteworthy statement. The Taiwanese side raised concerns that whereas in the past, people who openly supported Taiwan independence were targeted, from now on simply not actively supporting unification itself could become a problem. This has led to the interpretation that China's legal standards could gradually be expanded. Some in Taiwan's political and academic circles argue that the national unity law is not about minority policies, but is instead part of China's unification strategy and efforts to expand its external influence. In fact, this is not the first time such a move has appeared. Many experts, when looking at this national unity law, immediately think of the Hong Kong National Security Law. When the Hong Kong National Security Law was enacted, the international community was shocked because its scope extended beyond Hong Kong. The law allowed punishment for acts threatening national security, regardless of Hong Kong residency or location, and even if committed outside Hong Kong. At that time, the United States and the United Kingdom, European countries were concerned that these provisions could in effect be applied to people all around the world. In fact, the Hong Kong police even issued wanted notices for pro-democracy activists operating overseas. Some activists even had bounties placed on them. Because of this, overseas universities, research institutions, and human rights organizations had to consider legal risks when holding events or seminars related to Hong Kong. This is also why the international community reacted sensitively to the new ethnic unity law. If you look at the legal provisions themselves, they are structured in a way that could hold individuals and organizations outside of China's borders accountable. While the subjects and scope differ, some say this law resembles the Hong Kong National Security Law because it can legally judge actions occurring overseas. Since the Hong Kong National Security Law, China has taken a tougher stance on national security, territorial integrity, and unity. Therefore, some experts are paying attention to the possibility that this ethnic unity law could also be used as a new legal basis for the Chinese government to manage critical public opinion related to ethnic issues in the future. International human rights groups say the Hong Kong National Security Law has greatly affected freedom of expression and the press. Because of this, the international community is closely watching how the ethnic unity law will be applied after implementation. To understand the ethnic unity law, we must consider China's direction under Xi Jinping. The Chinese government explains that this law is a system for ethnic harmony and national integration, but many experts do not see it as an independent law. It's seen as another law from the growing trend of tighter state control since Xi Jinping took power. Since he became president, China's national security concept has kept expanding. Previously, military and diplomatic security were key, but now the focus is on the economy and technology. Information, education, culture, religion, and the internet are now included in the scope of national security. As a result, the areas where the state can intervene have greatly expanded. A representative example is the revision of the anti-espionage law. By revising this law, China expanded the scope of what the government considers related to national security. Because of this, foreign companies and research institutions have expressed concerns that it's unclear which activities might become problematic. Following this, the data security law and the personal information protection law were also implemented. The Chinese government argued that it was necessary to prevent the overseas leakage of core national data and important government information, but abroad, there was an assessment that the Chinese authorities' control over data had been greatly strengthened, and now the ethnic unity law is about to be implemented. After national security, data, the internet, and the Hong Kong issue, even ethnic issues are being incorporated into a legal system directly managed by the state. Therefore, some experts analyze that China is reorganizing its system to prioritize security and integration above all else. From this perspective, the ethnic unity law is not a law that suddenly appeared, but is interpreted as another example showing the direction of governance in China during the Xi Jinping era.